hope you're all wide awake, and this one is going to be hard, so let's hope we can have some form of a connection. I'm trying to keep it as less technical as possible because we have Alvin Ko coming up next. He's a technologist with Dell, and he's going to do one thing, which is just get into these things as deep as you want. We will request you to keep both of these sessions interactive. So if you have questions, unfortunately I can't see much, but if you could raise your hand or something, we would like to take it. We can take it in the middle, or we can take it afterwards. Okay, so what we as Dell have been doing for quite some time is we've been building a portfolio of solutions. We've acquired almost over 20 companies by now, and if you see this slide, this shows you, it's a fairly populated slide. It shows you all the companies that we've acquired, but this green box, actually you can expand it right to the top and up to the bottom. This shows all the acquisitions we've done in the storage space. So storage for Dell is a key initiative. Storage for Dell is something we really want to focus on. Recently, one of the press guys asked me a question. So Dell is coming new in storage, let's talk about it. And I said, no, let's start by reframing your question. We are not new in storage. I've been here 11 years, and I've been selling storage, and I've been working with customers for very complex storage solutions for 11 years. So it was there even before I joined. Yep. The reason why we're making a lot of noise about storage now is two reasons. The first reason is we've got a lot of very new interesting technologies, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea what these technologies refer to, but that's the new thing we've got. And the second thing is we want you to walk out of this room with a very simple and crisp message. When you talk to us, you are not looking for just anything and everything which is regular off the shelf. What we offer to our customers, especially from a storage perspective, is a very special, a unique, and a la carte solution that solves problems that you did not even know existed. So I'm going to touch on that quickly. And then of course we have Rinosh with us. Rinosh is with UST Global, and Rinosh also happens to be one of our key customers. So he will give you a perspective of what the Dell technology is, which is what I will talk about, and then Rinosh will spend a few minutes and explain to you how the technology actually makes sense for him, and he's happy to tell you if he's unhappy with it. So that's quickly the agenda for the next about 40 odd minutes. We can take questions in the middle, we can take questions at the end, but my request is, ladies and gentlemen, please try and stay awake. I know it was a nice lunch. Moving on, so this slide quickly gives you, I think you've seen this slide in the earlier sessions also. What this slide does is it gives you a brief idea of what Dell is doing. And if you look at this slide, there are actually 6 verticals in this. So the 3 on the left are about what we call as primary storage. And the other 3 on the right are about data backup, archival, data protection. That's the sweet spot area. Of course, things like replication, which fall in data protection bucket, are there on the primary storage solutions itself. So this gives you in one slide a portfolio picture. So we have about 25 to 35 odd products based on how you want to look at it to specifically address your storage needs. That's where this portfolio fits in. So moving on. So like I said, out of these, I'm going to touch on just 2 of the products. So what I'm telling you are 2 key differentiators we have in the market. Even with those products, and these, I would rather call them complete solutions in themselves. Both of these solutions have a whole lot of capabilities, between 15 to 20 great features, functionalities, and software which we believe actually help you solve your day-to-day problems. So I will not have time to touch on all of them. So I'm going to probably pick up 2 or 3 of them and spend 2 minutes each. So that's the agenda for the day. But like I said, if you have specific interest areas, or if you find something on the slide you want to talk about, we can do it during this session. We can do it in tea breaks. We'll have Alvin come in, who's going to give you a pure technical view of the same things. So we'll have lots of time to talk about those capabilities. So that's quickly the agenda going forward. So let's start by looking at the first solution stack I'm going to talk to you about, which is the Dell EqualLogic solution. So just to give a little bit of a perspective, we have had this solution in the Dell basket of offerings for over 4 years now. It's not a new solution. Okay, Dell has been selling it for 4 years. This company has existed since 2003. So it's an 8-year-old company. This company has been shipping products for 8 years, and I'll tell you a few real benefits of this as we go forward. But before I do that, and if you would kindly dim the lights for a second. Just dim that light. Yeah, how many of you actually use equal logic? Okay, great. So for some of you it might be repetitive information, and for the others hopefully it will be something very useful that I will talk to you about in the next 5 odd minutes. So let's look at equal logic. It looks like any other piece of hardware. It comes a couple of metal chassis with hard drives in it. That's what it is. What really makes it special is this concept. So how do you actually deploy a SAN? Or let me pause for a second and ask you a slightly different question. How many people here actually use SANs, storage area networks? Absolutely fantastic. How many of you have ever replaced an old SAN with a new SAN or upgraded in a big way? Ever done that? Great. So let's go back. This is year 2012. Let's say you bought a SAN in the year 2007. Okay? Let's say you bought a SAN, doesn't matter which vendor, you bought a SAN in the year 2007. Let's say that SAN had like 50 hard drives, and in the last 5 years, as your needs grew, you added disks, right? So you went from 50 to 80 to 100 to 120 to 140, right? So let's say last year upgrade, you're now sitting with 140 drives of different shapes and sizes. You have a few software capabilities running on the SAN. Okay, so can you dim the light once again? So there are quite a few people who use SANs here. Next question is, how many of you use a snapshot on a SAN? Okay, good. So these are fairly well-known words. You use it. And so you probably bought a piece of software called snapshots also with it, and hopefully some other things. So that SAN is now approximately 5 years old. What will happen this year? How many people here will not replace the SAN? You're going to run the 5-year-old SAN? So that's the question. So the question is, your SAN, hypothetically speaking, I'm hoping it is not 5 years old, but if it is 4.5 years old, will you will you not replace the SAN this year? You will, right? So you have 120 hard drives. You probably have 8 or 10, 15, 20 servers, and God knows how many users. Okay, I feel your pain. Buying the new SAN is the easy part of the job. Moving the data from the old SAN to the new SAN and hoping everything works and you don't get calls every night, every Sunday, you still get to enjoy your kid's birthday. I hope you're going to ask for that. Do we connect? Are we talking about the same pain points? Okay, I've done it. I've done it with the largest tobacco company in India. The only time I missed my son's birthday was because they would not let me go home on a Saturday evening, attend his birthday and come back on a Monday morning. They did not. They could not sleep if I walked out. Okay, so I think it makes sense. We're connecting. We are talking about a pain point we all have. Okay, but do you really believe it's a pain? You have to do it, right? You buy X vendor SAN, you buy Y vendor SAN, you have to do it. So 9 out of 10 vendors will not come and talk to you about it because you live with it. That's the way it is. There is no solution to it. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because we believe we are probably the first vendor in the market. We are definitely the first vendor in the market who has figured out a solution to this problem. Okay, so I'm going to spend exactly 2 minutes telling you what we do with it. This is what we do with it. So you bought, at the top what you're seeing are the servers. This is your network. So you could use a fiber channel, iSCSI, I don't really care, as long as you have a fabric, right? And then below you have your storage. That's how you buy it, right? On the storage you will have your RAID 1, RAID 5, whatever RAIDs you've configured, and you will map these RAIDs to various servers. So it shows you some areas mapped to an Exchange server, some is mapped to an archive server, some of it is mapped to an SQL server. Connecting so far? Make sense? Okay? So the difference, rule number 1 with my solution strategy is, I do not sell you disk shelves. So you bought an intelligent unit, you got a pair of controllers and disks on it and memory and I/O, and when you want to upgrade it, let's say this is 2 years old now, you need more capacity, you buy another unit. Okay? This is the easy part of the job. Buying another unit is like buying another shelf of hard drives. That we all know how to do. But after the shelf comes in, and if you sit like this, will it do any work for you? No. Someone has to go configure volumes, configure LUNs, mount them. If one of the older LUNs was running slow, you have to do some form of magic and hopefully you will get it right. That's how it works. Okay? I think I've spent enough time in data centers that we should all agree on that point. But what I do differently is this. First of all, what you got from me was a new unit with a pair of controllers with its own memory, its own storage, its own cache. So rule number one is when you buy a Dell solution, you don't have to guess which storage you should be buying, because storage solutions can be 120 hard disks, 240 hard disks, like that, right? So you have to choose on day one which one you go to buy. In my case, you do not choose. You just buy that first unit. That's it. When you buy the next one, you deploy it. The deployment is very simple. Monday evening the unit comes. Tuesday morning you stick it into the rack, turn it on. 30 minutes later, you go and have a cup of coffee and do your normal work. And the two systems will talk to each other. Okay? And let's say you buy a third one, they will all talk to each other and they will spread the data. So you had X drives, you go to 2X drives, you do nothing, and everybody sees a performance improvement automatically. That extra free space, you can allocate it to a different server. So your addition, expansion, no guesswork, nothing works out of the box. Okay? So we call it the scale out architecture. You don't have to decide whether you should be buying a storage with 8 gig of cache or 64 gigs of cache. Buy that unit, because every time you buy it, you will get new cache, you will get new controllers. Right? So let's say this is the one you bought in the year 2007. This is the one you bought in the year 2009. And let's say that is the one you bought last year, 2011. Okay? So now we're in 2012. What's going to happen? The first unit is that magical, roughly 5 years old. In the old SAN, you would have just removed the entire stuff and bought a brand new storage, and you would have spent a few weekends or a month migrating data. With the Dell solution, this is what happens, and watch very carefully. You just order a new system. Okay? So let's say you had 1, 2, 4, so 7 terabytes. You order a new one, let's say for convenience 10 terabytes. So now you have 17 terabytes. You order a new one, the data spreads on 4 of them. Then you go to the first one, you right click it and turn on a feature called Array Evacuate. And he will flush this data onto the existing 3 arrays, and this is what will happen. You have not turned off any equipment for maintenance. You go there, you rip out your network cables, SAN cables, power cables. You have only replaced what was 5 years old. You have not done any forklift movement of data. It did it for you. You did not have to come to the office on a Saturday and a Sunday. You did not have to work at night. This technology is called scale out, and the second part of this function is called array evacuation. We believe we offer our customers some really great ROI with this solution. One of the case studies that Phil Davis showed you earlier today, that customer is actually running his SAP on this, because he doesn't have to worry about hard schedules and deadlines. I think we've got a great feature here, right? So moving on, and this technology works with something you bought in 2003, so backwards compatibility is not an issue. Somebody bought this product before we acquired the company and is buying the latest solid state drive array, it still works. Okay, and then we have a couple of other features. Snapshots, right? Snapshots can be good, can be bad. A lot of people don't really use snapshots for backup, because when you take a snapshot and some data is going in, data is going out, that snapshot is not very reliable. So I give you software that ensures data is guaranteed. So if Exchange is sending some information to the storage, it will pause it. If a file transfer is happening, it will let it complete and then it will pause it. And it will take a snapshot which is guaranteed. And to get that functionality, you don't have to pay extra. It comes with the storage. So it's an application-aware storage solution. Okay? It is scale out. We give you performance monitoring tools. There is no line-by-line software capabilities and usual stuff, data replication, DR, all that is there on this. So this, in a quick 5-8 minutes, is my elevator pitch on what we believe is our first flagship solution. This is not a box of hard drives. It's a complete software solution in itself. So with that, I'm actually going to switch over to Mr. Rinosh, and I'm going to ask him to talk about what his experience is. Mr. Rinosh, you have this technology in your environment, by the way.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to share my experience with this product, and it might not be about features and all of that, but then it is mostly about what we got out of it, right? So we had this requirement to buy new storage, and my CIO called me and said, you know, Rinosh, there's a deal going on. I want you to get involved in it. So I said, see, when it comes to storage, I'm a technically challenged architect. I have no idea about storage. But then I said, but I'll figure out. I'll go and talk to Dell and figure out what options we have. And the Dell team came down and gave me a good introduction on storage from a business standpoint, from a technology standpoint. They taught me everything about, you know, IOPS and all that stuff that is important to take a decision. And it was an exercise that went on, but unfortunately the incumbent team that was currently managing it, I was not responsible for that infrastructure at that time. The team was not very comfortable with iSCSI. So they were pitching for another product which was FC based, and I can understand, like, you come from a background, you have seen all kinds of storage. We had got enterprise class storage in our various locations. We have multiple locations wherein we have storage. We have got one of the best storages way back, much more than what we actually required. And so these guys have worked with all kinds of storage, and they had formed an opinion saying that, you know, FC is the best. You can't work on an iSCSI box and all that. So we were going through these negotiations. I was trying to convince them on the advantages of the technology. I understood that this was different from the traditional iSCSI interface, because when you look at a traditional modular storage, you would have a controller and you have expandable enclosures. The problem is that depending on the storage that you buy first, it will either have a lot of controller power and few disks. And then as you add disks, at some point in time, you will have matching capacity for your controller, the number of disks that would match it. And beyond that, when you load disks to its maximum, actually the controller is going to slow down, and it's not going to take that much load. Then you'll have to upgrade the controller, you'll have to, or get another new unit or all of that. But what I saw in the merit was exactly what Harmeet had just shown you, wherein you can actually keep adding modular enclosures with drives, but the beauty is that you are adding compute, cache, and network. So all the critical components that are required for storage are being added along with each addition of boxes. That was a key difference. Now guess what? So these guys influenced another vice president, and I get a call from him saying that, Rinosh, I heard that you are working on a storage solution that's iSCSI. I think that's a disaster. Don't do it. Now, he's got 25 years of experience. He's managed banks. So he was a CIO of banks in America. So he knows the stuff. He knows everything about it. So he gave me a good round, you know, like two minutes. He's like, don't do it. That's not the right thing. Go FC and all that. At the end of it, I said, sir, I understand that, but you see, in this solution, with each controller or each enclosure that you add, you are actually adding more capacity. It took him only 2 seconds to realize that. So he said, oh, that's how they solved it. So he understood that a clear problem that was there with iSCSI earlier has been solved now, right? Because iSCSI would allow you only 1 Gbps at that time. Now I know that they have got 10 Gbps, but at that time you had only 1 Gbps. But the point is, an enclosure of drives just cannot exhaust even that 1 Gbps. So it's 1 Gbps into 4 ports, so it's effectively you're getting 4 Gbps. One enclosure of drives cannot deliver more than 4 Gbps because that is a physical limitation of the drives, right? But now it is different probably with SSD drives and all of that, but then they have scaled out with 10G and all that. So at that point, so he understood immediately that where there was a clear problem in traditional iSCSI, this has been addressed in a very smart way. That was the first contention that he had. Second, he said, if you're going to connect iSCSI onto your network, you're going to kill it. You're going to kill your current network, right? So the typical problem with iSCSI, when people pitch iSCSI, is the fact that sometimes you might get, a little, you might feel like, why don't you use the existing network infrastructure? Because you can save on switching and all that. Don't do that. So what we did is we got a separate set of switches just for the data traffic. So we keep our information, I call information traffic is your regular traffic versus your data traffic. So we kept our data traffic separate. Today when I look back at it, it is not really that serious. You can still manage with your existing core network infrastructure, provided you do you're very careful about it. So this was a really epic kind of discussion that we had with two camps taking clearly two positions. And finally, today, the funny fact is that the person who said that iSCSI is not the solution and FC should be the solution, he's gone ahead and bought Ecologic in 4 locations worldwide. So that is, satisfaction for me because he understood the difference of the solution. And the Ecologic that we started off internally, the significant advantage that I saw was, and I am sure that anybody who is using Ecologic would agree, is the simplicity of use. We had a Dell engineer come down and teach us stuff, and this was managed by my colleague. I don't know whether he's in the room now, but he did not have any storage background. So basic training given by Dell engineer on the side, he just configured everything, and then he said, this is how you need to go about it. And today, he is managing all our Ecologic in all our locations worldwide. And we are even running our mission critical, one of our business units, mission critical data on Ecologic, which is replicated onto another sender. So today, when you look at it, depending on the size of your data, if it is a branch office infrastructure, if it is something that you're starting on, if it is a new storage that you know that it is going to scale over a period in time, this is a very good way to go about it. Because we all hear about cloud, right? People talk about cloud. At the end of the day, what is cloud? What is the business benefit of cloud? You just have to pay for what you use, one. Second is, it has to be scalable. You should not have to worry about when you start adding more and more, right? Both of these requirements are perfectly catered by this device, wherein you buy one controller, one storage, use it. When you exhaust it, buy the next one. Keep adding to it. So you don't over-provision. Typically, when we used to buy capacity, we would buy capacity for a year because when the deal works out, that would be the best way to do it. But then you should understand that a lot of your capacity, which is consuming power, and this spinning is not delivering any business value. Whereas this allows you to keep adding to that. Then the last thing that I would like to talk about in Ecologic is the fact that provisioning storage. Earlier, when we asked our storage team to provide storage, they would say that, okay, you fill out this form and your requirement, and then they would start formatting. I said, okay, so how much time does it take? So if I ask for a 1 TB or 2 TB, they say it takes 1 day. I said, that's ridiculous. So they said, no, look at this. We want to make sure that the controller is optimally used. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the format process only during night when it has got minimum usage. Okay, good. But when you ask for more than 2 terabyte, it'll be like 3 days, 4 days. I said, this is not going to work. The moment I got Ecologic into my system and I asked my engineer, I needed this PI's provision very quickly. He said, okay. He collected all the information. 5 minutes later, he calls me back and said, done. I said, you got to be kidding. 5 minutes. Because I'm used to a regimen where it took 1 day to provision that storage. So how, and I would say, that's a good storage too. I mean, we've paid a lot of money, right? So that's a good storage too. Now, how can something else like this, much smaller device, do it so quickly? So that was the beauty of it. So speed was extremely key to us, and that really helped us a lot. So that's all from my side on Ecologic.
Thank you, Mr. Rinosh. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Any questions you have on this technology? So I got a quick question about replication. We can replicate at a frequency of as little as 5 minutes. And if you want to set up maybe something with stock exchange kind of reliability, I'm about to tell you what is the other one. So if you want to do a synchronous replication, we have another solution. So I'm about to come to that. So that's one question that I was asked. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, hi. I have a question regarding the application you mentioned, that you said that whenever suppose there is you start backup, and all of a sudden suppose there is an exchange which is sending some data will be stopped, basically. So does that mean that user will realize something? Because if there is any application which is user is trying to access, and if it's sending data, and because backup is going on, it will be queued. So is that user will realize that?
No, it's not. So I used a simplistic word. The right word is quiz. And it is not minutes or something. It is probably for seconds. You will not be able to tell the difference. Think of it, when you do a backup using an online agent, right? Let's say you're using an SQL agent to do a backup. What does that do? You pay more money and that gives you just this functionality. Here, you took a snapshot which was quizzed without an agent. Okay, so snapshot is like if it was D drive, you mount it as E drive and probably Xcopy it or use basic software, you've got a reliable backup. I'm telling you not to stop using existing backup, but I'm just giving you a use case. You can probably take a snapshot every hour. So 1 hour back, you want to go back, you can do it because you can take a lot of snapshots. And will it affect your users? The answer is no. It will not. It can hold many snapshots before you even sense any degradation happening. Excellent question. Any other questions on the technology, please?
We have CX300 SAN. Can be upgraded with Ecologic?
Okay, any SAN can be upgraded to any of the Dell solutions, but the word is not upgrade actually. The first time you will have to do that forklift. Okay, so can I do forklift with somebody else? I can simplify the process. So we can have a one-on-one discussion, but we have a way of making that migration simple, faster, and less painful. But first time you will have to do it. But once you come on this platform, that problem is gone for good. Okay, so we'll try and take some more questions. Oh, yeah.
Does it support OLTP application?
Yeah, it is running. So the question is, does it support OLTP? The case study that Mr. Phil Davis showed earlier, he's running his SAP on it.
So if I say 1 million transaction, if I say 1 million transaction, okay, of my application, will you push this Ecologic to that customer?
Yep. So if you've got a large setup, we will have a consultant come down, spend time with you. So we have options with solid state drives. We have options with as many as 48 drives in a single box. We can scale very well. Okay? And usually the transactions per second workload is actually sizing done on a server level. So an OLTP workload is not measured on the storage, it is measured on the server. We need to do a little bit of an analysis, figure out what kind of environment you have. We have a free data assessment service called DPAC. It's a tool you can run yourself on your Windows Linux machines. It will give you performance data, mail it to us. So Google search DPAC, download it yourself, don't call me, run it. When you download it, he'll give you an email address. You generate the reports, mail it to us. I will send you a very professional report telling you how good a shape you are in. And I'm happy to talk about this later. But am I up to the challenge? The answer is yes. Let's talk. Appreciate the question. Thank you. We'll try and take more questions towards the end. Thank you so much for your interaction. But let me spend about 10 minutes quickly talking about the next one. So this is a new solution on a relative scale. New in the sense, Dell has been offering it since last year, January. This company has been in existence for many years now. In fact, they have Even before Dell acquired them, they had 300 very large installations. Very large means people like banks were using it. There is a stock exchange which was using it, but I can't take their name, unfortunately. So they were really, really large customers they had. And we acquired this company. So like I was telling you, when you come to Dell, we are no more about offering you, he can do this, I will do this. If that's what you want, I think you're talking to the wrong set of people. I have something you can configure on the web and buy it, if that's what you're looking for. But I'm going to spend about 5 minutes and give you a quick idea on what this makes it an equally good and very smart solution. This is the first thing that this solution does. It has something called data progression. And I want to spend a minute telling you what data progression is. When you deploy this solution called Compellent, if you buy only, let me pause and ask, how many people understand RAID 1.0 versus RAID 5? Superb, I'm talking to the right folks then, I don't have to do basic introductions. So we all know RAID 1.0 is safest, fastest for writes. We all know RAID 5 has the least wastage. It's as good for reads, but not as good for writes because there is only single parity drive, right? So what this guy does is, this storage, the default behavior is if you buy only one hard drive. So you buy all 15,000 RPM hard drives, there is no concept of saying 300 GB into 100 hard drives is equal to 3 terabytes, 30 terabytes. No, it doesn't work like that. What he does is he looks at the drives and the operating system takes control. You get to see nothing. Any data that comes in, any data which is being written to the storage, he creates RAID 1.0s and writes it. In the real world, if you did that, you would lose more than half your capacity if you include the hot spares, right? So you have 100 drives, you do RAID 1.0, you get about 44, 45 drives usable. That's bad. But that is still, if you could do that, you get the highest write performance, right? So what this guy does is everything gets written on RAID 1.0. That's what it does. And then data progression, so you take a snapshot. We assume if you don't buy a storage and you don't use a snapshot, you probably did not need the storage for something mission critical. So we assume you will take at least a snapshot. Once you take a snapshot, you know what it means? That data has to stay as such. Which technically means if I had X amount of data and 2 blocks changed, the original blocks have to stay and the new blocks should be written somewhere else. So what we do is, we do a data progression in lean period you define at a low priority. So you define 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. I'm relatively free. Relatively, I'm not asking you to turn it off. And he will convert all your RAID 1.0s into RAID 5 at night. So every morning you still get your space back. Okay, and once it is RAID 5 and you only read from it, the performance is still the same. And this is the default behavior of the storage, and this is when you buy one tier. It gets better. It's designed to do minimum 2 tiers, so we will expect you to buy 15,000 RPM high performance drives. We will also expect in the first order you bought 2-3 terabyte nearline SAS low performance, equally reliable drives. So we have a 5-year-old time-tested algorithm that automatically moves that RAID 5 data to further lower tiers. Think of it like this. We all have like 10-20 GB of data on our laptops, right? And we all know for a fact we will never use more than 5-10% of it, right? But none of us, including me, I cannot go and simply delete the rest 90%, can I? Why is it that I cannot delete it? Because we don't know which is the one we can delete. We know 90% can be deleted. The problem is, which is that 90%? What you deleted was probably 90% or 10%, there is no definition. Correct? Do we connect? That's the fundamental problem, and that is exactly what this storage does. He looks at the stuff, he doesn't delete it, he just moves it. So look at it, a 600 GB drive and a 2 terabyte drive roughly cost the same. But a 2 terabyte drive has like 6 times the capacity. Okay, so it's actually costing you 1/6. So if I can move your unused data to that, I've done actually not one, but 2 things for you. One, I've saved you money on the drive. But I've done a lot more than that. Guess what is that? You've bought 1/6 the number of drives. Look at the electricity I saved you. Think of the kilowatts, multiply them with 365 days a year and 4-5 years, and then that maybe you might appreciate what I just said. But remember, that's the same amount of electricity your air conditioning was also going to clean out, right? The heat generated. I actually save you a lot of money. You do your maths, it is obvious that this was not expensive. That's the first thing I do for you. The second thing that I do for you on this storage is I can do even more tiers. I can do solid state drives, 15,000 RPM drives. I can do 7,200 RPM drives. I can do all kinds of tiering. And this is not an option that you buy. It's there in the operating system. It's embedded. It's in the genes of the storage. That is the key value we bring with this. This is what Phil was talking about earlier in the day. Tiering is important. This is what Gartner was talking about. We all want, see, conceptually we all want tiering. The problem is we don't know how to do it. So what Dell did was we fixed it for you. You plug it in, it does it for you. The additional, in fact, on this storage you never configure drives. You never decide 3 drives will do that job, 4 drives will do that job. You never do that. You turn it on, all you see is terabytes. And you happily allocate terabytes. That's all you do. That is all you do. We give you a beautiful piece of software that does monitoring. It'll give you a report. It's called a hero report. And I will tell you why we call it a hero report. That report will tell you that 7 terabytes of data was moved to this tier. So let's say you bought 100 terabytes. It'll tell you that 74 terabytes is sitting on 7,200 RPM less expensive drives. What will you do with that information? You will take a printout and put it on the table of your CFO. Look, you did not want me to buy a slightly more expensive solution, but here is the saving I've done. You have bought so many less hard drives. You can, and if you give it the price of electricity, or you can spend 5 minutes to your own calculation, this is so many rupees of electricity I saved you, because that data is not sitting on those very expensive, fast, power-hungry drives. It does it for you. It will do it for you. And that software is also given to you with the storage. These are cloud capabilities. When you don't manage components, when you don't manage parts, everything is virtual. All you do is look at the big picture and manage it. That is exactly what we do on this solution. Do you think this is nice? There is one more very nice thing about this platform. If you come and ask me, which one should I buy? You know what my answer to you will be? Any one. Remember Henry Ford once said, I don't care which color of car you buy as long as it is black. So I don't care which compellent as you buy, because there is only one model. So you do 100 drives, you do 500 drives, you do 1,000 drives, I really don't care. So there is no guesswork involved when you buy this solution also from us. You can do medium, large. This is an enterprise class solution. And again, snapshots. I believe application-aware, intelligent smart snapshots are a very seriously underused technology in our industry, because the older implementations were actually used to slow down your storage. I was talking to a very large customer in the US. He did a rough estimate, and you know how many snapshots he was taking on his storage? How many snapshots would you take? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100? He was running close to 5,500 snapshots. This is just in a different league. You know what 5,500 snapshots means? He had 5,500 backups. I don't know, he was backing up like 50 volumes every hour, and God knows how long he was holding. I think he was well exceeding all limits we know, but he had never crashed. Awesome piece of technology, highly recommended. And then we can replicate. So for the specific DR, Ecology can do it, but this guy, if you want replication, this guy is in a different league. What this fellow does is, you can have one in Delhi, you can have the other in London, and first of all, to set up replication, how many engineers will you need if you had one in Delhi, one in London? How many people say 2? To set up 2 sites, how many people need 2 engineers? DR. Really, nobody needs 2 engineers. How many people need 3? More greater than 3. Well, okay, so the straight answer is this guy needs 1. You can sit here, you can configure the entire DR on a 2-side, 3-side or a 4-side. You can do round robin, one to many, many to one to one, sitting on a single console. Okay, let me ask you this question. So there are many people who use a SAN. Let's say you and me become very friendly and I come to you on a Friday evening and we get pally. You know, can you please power off your storage and see me if your DR works? How many people will agree to show me that? You will actually power it off to show me that? Awesome, I'm impressed. So there are two gentlemen and I think there's a lady who will happily demonstrate that. But by the way, if you had this, I can assure you on a Tuesday afternoon you would all agree to do that. You know why? Because it has a special simulation mode just to do that. It doesn't touch your production data. It just simulates it. It tests every link, every connection, every speed and tells you whether it is working or not. I have done it with the largest in-house BPO in Delhi. I did that testing about 8 years back. Believe me, they used to look for a long weekend. Long weekend meant preferably 4 days. Because if something goes wrong in your DR testing, you've got a disaster that you did not need on your hands by default. It's a very, very scary thought. Okay? So we've got quite a bunch of other features that I'm not going to spend time on, but what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go back to Mr. Rinosh. And I'm going to ask him, he's one gentleman who's actually experienced both of our technologies, on what his viewpoints on that are. Mr. Rinosh.
Thank you. You must be thinking, oh no, him again. Well, we bought Ecologic in 2010, early 2010, and Compellent in late 2011. And the reason why we went for a storage like that was we had a major virtualization project going on, and we wanted to make sure that we got a solution that can scale and give us the necessary IOPS and all those fancy stuff. The initial design that I created was on Ecologic. The complete virtualization solution we had built with Ecologic in our mind. So since we had experienced Ecologic and we were like thrilled about it, we had the entire solution stacked. Like we had a design in which we had around 8 Ecologic boxes in our largest data center, and then 4 in Chennai and 1 in our Los Angeles, a couple of them in Los Angeles. So that was a design that we initially created. And then we were in discussion with Dell when they came and said, hey, wow, this is massive Ecologic and we love to have that business, but you know what? We recently acquired a company called Compellent and they are into storage. So I see, heard about a lot of storage, but never about Compellent. So it's new product in India, not sold so far. But of course, they were promising us customer references in North America where it was supposed to have good adoption. And we got the customer reference as well. But before that, we said, okay, let's listen to it. Because last time we listened to Dell and we saw this great technology and we love it. Let us give them this chance and let them come down and discuss. So they sent their engineers and we went through the evaluation process, a lot of things. But one thing that really struck us was the storage steering thing. So we immediately understood the value. My CIO was very excited about it because he clearly understood that if we can move data from the high-cost, high-performance drives to the cheaper drives with large capacity, it meant a shrinkage of our data center requirements in terms of capacity, right? You need lesser drives. And I said earlier, lesser drives means lesser power, lesser cooling, all of that requirement. That was really attractive to us. And so the only challenge was that we had to go ahead with this investment without having seen one, right? Without really having heard about it, without really having seen it, we were moving along with this. And since we have been in partnership with Dell for such a long time, they were our trusted partners, so we said, okay, we'll go with it. So we went for this procurement of 300 terabyte. And at that time, over the last 10 years, 11 years that UST Global has been in business, we had accumulated 150 terabyte. So we are talking about a single purchase in a single year for twice the capacity worldwide, right? So that is a big decision. So I said, finally, as the deal date got closer, I called up the Dell guys and said, guys, I'm putting my career on the line, right? I'm going to buy this by just listening to you, and if this doesn't deliver, I get killed. Like, this is the end of me, right? So I said, but they said, don't worry, we are behind you, guaranteed nothing will go wrong. So we went ahead with that procurement, and today I can really talk about the benefits that we are getting from this storage tiering. It is amazing technology. I've seen it in action. I've seen the reports. If you can sign an NDA, I can share that with you. Amazing technology. And when they talked about the fast technology, wherein they would write at the outer sectors of the drive, I said, yeah, don't you think that's taking things a bit too much? Storage tiering is great, but you are telling me with this technology, you are going to write data on the outer perimeter of the drives and then keep moving most frequently accessed data to the center of it. Technically, it made a lot of sense, but to do that requires a lot of genius. But they have pulled that as well. So we see these reports, beautiful reports, and we are like, we are fairly confident that the investment that we have made is really gone very well. The other thing about storage tiering specifically is because in my existing storage capacity, I used to spend time, the team would come and say that, we have run out of storage. So I'd say, really, you have run out of storage? Give me the data, let's sit and have a look. So we would sit together, look at all the allocations, look at all the utilization, and then we would realize that actually there is some storage available. And if you just move stuff around, we can take that. So I was able to take 30 terabyte from our existing storage. When the team said that absolutely there is no more storage available, I was able to sit and find it, and then he had to sit over the weekend, take a downtime of the servers, and then do all the migrations. Very painful affair. You don't want to do it, I don't want to do it anymore. The good thing is it has made me redundant. I don't have to figure out sitting down which drive, which storage, all of that. The system takes care of it. That is the beauty of it. So it is less work for me and still more work for them for different things. And the beauty is, the performance with capacity, right? So it's a challenge that we always have to work with. If you buy this storage and it goes into the lesser performing drives, wouldn't the performance get affected? The good thing is that if suddenly an old data is now being frequently accessed, it keeps bringing up again to the faster tiers. So that is another thing. And one last thing that I would like to share with you is the program they call Copilot. This is amazing service, no question about it. So we were commissioning the storage, and we had our data center had some, because it was designed in 2004, we had a lot of hotspots and challenges which we couldn't address.
So if I may interject, so what Rinosh is talking about, something I forgot to completely mention actually. It's called Copilot. You're sitting in an aircraft, there is a pilot sitting next to you. That's the service we give specifically with this storage. Okay, so just to set the perspective right, and then please, sir.
So we had just commissioned the storage, we had configured everything, we had set it up, all the connectivity, and they had requested for some connection to their support center. We said, fine, okay, we'll do that, and we gave all of that. At 1 o'clock in the night, I get a call. So they called me and said, sir, your storage is too hot. Like, what? Who is this? Right? So I did not know that I'll get a call, so I was not expecting it at all. So said, one of your enclosures is actually the temperature threshold. It has breached the upper limit, and you need to take some action. She said, wow. This is like somebody looking, making sure that you don't make any mistakes, right? So I immediately called my engineer because I can't do much about this technology stuff. So I called my engineer. He's here, and I said, see, this is big time trouble for us. Why don't you go ahead and shut it down? So they remotely started shutting it down, and then they went to the facility and then at night and physically shut down the whole thing. So that was when I realized the power of the Copilot program. See, you have somebody looking out for you and looking at all these parameters, right? And letting you know when something is out of place. And I understand that even for other activities, like in terms of migrations, etc., we can rely on the Copilot team, and we have taken their help multiple times after that. So, and I'm saying that, probably for all technology, like we are buying, Dell servers in bunches. Probably if we can figure out a mechanism by which Dell can give this Copilot services for all of its products, it will be just amazing. You can literally get rid of your GNOC, right? We have a global network operations center, guys who sit and just look at all these numbers. But then you have the partner themselves making sure that whatever we have invested is safe and is working fine. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rinosh. So long story short, we've got a few other solutions in terms of file management, data dedupe that we will not be able to cover in this session. But the message we wanted to give you as a part of this discussion was, do not look at the last 10 years or 20 years of how storage has grown up. I've been in the industry long enough. I have had my times with the command line based early storage solutions to some of the fancy ones today. Our objective is that you should not be carrying the legacy baggage of the last 10 to 20 years. How we are looking at it is we are offering you solutions which are good for the next 10 years. So think of the challenges of the next 10 years. If you go back 3, 4, 5 years back, we would have 5, 10, 20 servers. What do we have today? We probably have still 5, 10, 20 servers, but we have probably 100 plus virtual servers. You can't think of storage by using the old paradigm, because the old paradigm just doesn't work. You need a virtual storage for virtual servers. You don't need a storage for your virtual servers. So these things have some advanced capabilities. I can assure you that they do a lot more that we haven't covered today, that we can offer our customers. These are not products. These are complete solutions. They talk to the servers, they talk to Exchange, they talk to SQL, they will talk to VMware, they have SRM capabilities. The storage will talk to those components and optimize your environment. There is, of course, a key component of the network in between that also we want to work with you. But our intention is we want to be a single throat to choke. You have enjoyed our computing power on servers for many years. We are here to offer you the interconnects. We have probably the best storage portfolio for the next 10 to 20 years in the market. If you listen to analysts, their wish list, quite a bit of it we are already shipping. You talk to customers, their vision, we actually are able to execute on quite a bit of it. Let us know. We want to come and talk to you. We want to understand your pains. We want to understand your challenges. Let us know the challenges which you think are not solvable. We may have a solution, because we do have a brand new, radically different environment. I'll give you a small example. How many people here use Linux or Unix? I've used a NAS system on which there were so many files that if I type ls minus l, it takes like 10 seconds before the list starts scrolling. I did not know, and I've seen that happen to my computers also. If you have a lot of files in a single folder and enough inodes, that problem happens. I thought it is a problem of bad storage, bad way of organizing your file system. Well, I realized that we have a piece of software on one of the storage systems where it doesn't happen, because it just handles the files in a very different file system. You have 500 files, you have 50,000 files, it doesn't care. You do ls and it starts scrolling right then. You want to search for a file. I realized our search on that particular storage subsystem in certain scenarios was like good 5, 10 times faster. Customer is not looking for a fast NAS. He just wants the file listing to come fast, right? That's the pain. He wants to be able to search for a file fast. So again, back to my original point. The point is, we have a radical set of storage solutions. We've acquired a dedupe company which had over 100 PhDs writing algorithms to optimize dedupe. So we've got a lot of very interesting stuff as a part of our portfolio. We are a very, very strong storage company. Don't get me wrong. I am very confident walking into a customer office and saying, you have a storage challenge, we would like to talk about it. The only place we don't want to touch today is mainframes. Okay, then if you can afford a mainframe, you can afford a mainframe class storage. Okay, If you wanted to pay 10 times for the computing power, I am assuming you will happily pay 5 times for the storage. So barring that space, we as a company are always happy to come sit with you, even if you don't have a storage purchase in mind, but you have a problem or a challenge you want to talk to us, we're happy to be your consultants. We've built a sales team which is all technologists. Okay? They've come from all over the industry, they've seen everybody's strengths, they can talk to you about it. That's something we have. So any other questions? We still have a couple of minutes. If you have any other questions, I can answer them, or we can move over to a purely hardcore session next. Any other questions, please, on these technologies?
If I'm querying old data, then how it gets transferred to the fastest drive?
Okay, so good question. So I talked about when data gets old, it goes down. Well, so the complete data progression algorithm is actually two-way. It has a mechanism to measure how old which data is and can move it from expensive to medium to inexpensive hard drives. They're all equally reliable though. And then there is an algorithm that can bring it back. So let's say suddenly there is big activity happening, some audit is happening, and you need to access your 3-year-old data. You start pounding the 3-year-old data. It's not sitting on tapes, it's sitting on disks. It will come to you immediately. But when you start pounding it, the algorithm will have a look at it, and if it realizes that there is enough performance needed, it starts moving the progression back upwards also. So the data progression algorithm we have can move the data down and will definitely move the data back up based on your business needs. So yes, it is a part of the plan. We also have, for urgent situations, what is called as a profile reconfig. You can do that, and you can manually within 24 hours move the data to top tier if you want real fast.
Excuse me. Can you briefly explain how this storage replication works?
Storage replication is every piece of data that is here is replicated there. That's replication. You can do it two ways. One is async. Async means based on the speed it goes, but it is all the DR site is always behind the production site. And sync is you could afford a lot of performance, a lot of bandwidth, so every IO that happens here happens there. Beyond that, we can have a chat offline.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
This is regarding the algorithm we are talking about in the compilant, which is doing this auto-tiring sort of thing. I want to know how much overhead it causes on performance.
Excellent question. How much overhead happens because of storage tiering? Performance-wise, 0, because we don't do anything in production hours. Some people who have tried to do it as an afterthought are monitoring it and doing it 24/7. We don't do it. We let you define when you want to do it.
It will take some time for me to understand what will be the frequency to be set.
No, you will not set the frequency, we will set it for you.
No, just now you said na, ki you will define when you want to do the
No,
auto
the only thing I will let you define is define the period when you feel that the load is low on the storage. Everything else, because what happens is, like in some sales offices, people work till 9 in the night. So I cannot use 7 o'clock, 7 in the evening as window, right? In some BPO houses, people work all nights, but I've seen those BPOs empty from 12 to 3 in the afternoon. So the only thing I will let you define is when you feel your workload is low, everything else, I manage it for you.
But let's say that case, the way just now you mentioned, suddenly some audit comes,
yes,
and the lower priority thing has to be read right now.
So if that audit happens, two things happen. First is, you will still not do anything. We will move the data back. You will not move it. We will move it back for you. The storage will move the data back from a low tier to a high tier. But you have an exceptional emergency.
Yep.
That's when you do what Mr. Rinosh did. You pick up the phone and call Copilot, and they will do it for you, and we will not charge you for that. So if you have an exception, I assure you the objective is to keep your life as simple, even in exception scenarios, as possible.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we will not ask you to do it.
One thing was moving data from RAID 1 plus 0 to RAID 5. Whether this is mandatory or whether the customer can continue to keep it everything on RAID 1 plus 0? That is one.
Okay, so good question. Let me ask you this question. Why would you want to keep it on RAID 1.0? Why do you want to waste more than half your capacity?
So customer want better security for the data.
Okay, so agree.
Vis-a-vis RAID 5, RAID 1 plus 0 is
So
more
for
secure.
security reasons, I can do actually a lot more than just that for you, sir. I can let you configure a profile where data goes on RAID 1.0, moves to RAID 5, and you make duplicate copies on RAID 5. That is even safer. I can let you make a copy here and buy a second storage center, make a second copy there and do something even better. You know what that will do? Now there are two storage centers who are able to answer back your queries, parallel performance. So the short answer to your question is yes, but I can do it in some really fancy ways. We can.
And while getting Rinosh tiering, that is from lower to upper tiering, what if there is not enough disk space on the high-speed disks?
So we will not move all the data. See, think of it. It's not your laptop C drive that is moving from SSD to lower tiers. It's only those blocks on the C drive which are getting I/O requests which are moving. So rule number one is, think of it, your PST file, 1 gig PST file will not move. It will break the PST file into blocks. And only the mails you are accessing will move first. So the granularity is fantastic. But if you have really bought very little amount of performance at the highest tier, you can always hit a bottleneck. But you can do it with anybody's storage then. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Okay, appreciate, sir. The next gentleman.
Yeah, I would like to know the block size used. Okay, block size used for
Yes,
tiering mechanism.
you can choose the block size. You can buy half an MB, 2 MB, 4 MB. You can choose the block size. By default, my request to every customer is, let us do it for you.
Okay.
Let us do it.
And second thing, for tiering, the tiering operation. Yeah, for tiering operation, is there any additional chip inside the box, or you are again firmware is taking care of that?
No, so we use standard Intel Xeon CPUs, multi-core CPUs, standard memory. We use a standard x86 architecture. It's not rocket science. Okay. The hardware is not rocket science. It's the operating system, it's the software that does all this for you. Okay. It's general purpose. That is what makes it easy to upgrade. That is what makes it easy for us to roll out new features, deploy them fast, make it simple. You have an old one which had SATA drives. There are no more SATA drives. You get 7,200 RPM nearline SAS drives. You have a 4-year-old compellent. I will come and stick in a new I/O and connect it.
Okay.
So it's flexible, it's standard, it's easy. And I repeat the word again, we will do it for you. Tell us what you want us to do for you. I'm actually running out of time. We're all available for Q&A. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.